What's the most recent thing that you can think of that you've been really frustrated by?
So many things in Australian politics, honestly. And I think it's something that we talk about a lot, but just what really frustrates me is like the way we structure debates in Australia, who's allowed to have a voice and what it means if you speak up about something. Like, I really admire American society for reasons that, like, when I express them out loud, people often like roll their eyes at me and think that I'm a bit of a clown for saying it. But like, just the way that they'll have it out over any issue, like, I think that that is actually incredibly admirable for society. And it kind of does allow that compromise to happen. Yes, you have to hear from the crazy people all the time, but then you realize that within those outer bounds, there's all these incredibly bright people who have like actual ideas about things that we could do in society, things we could pursue to get better results. And I kind of think that's why they do get better results than us.
And they also get a critical network of those people. They find each other and do stuff, which is a lot harder to do, especially if you're not having conflict or you're not, there isn't a space for sort of voicing what you may actually think about something, which I think is the critical Australian weakness. I remember when I was in New York in 2012, like I had a few drinks and I was at a bar and standing next to a stranger and we were basically in a yelling argument about, gun policy, I was younger and obnoxious. And because he was telling me how you need to be able to take out the police if they were corrupt or whatever. And I was like, you're not taking out the US Army on your own, buddy, or whatever. Like, and it was a really heated exchange. Then we just sat down and like switched a topic, really friendly interactions. And I was just like almost euphoric because I was like, this would never happen at home. If you're in a room in a typical Australian scenario and you have a disagreement, it's like someone's farted in your mouth. Like it's so unacceptable to like have divergent opinions to the point that like, you'll just sit there and sort of like, I feel like it's more normal. Like someone could come up to me and say the most antithetical thing to everything I believe. And I'm probably more likely to go, oh yeah, than to like stand up for my core belief. I mean, maybe not now, but like, I feel like that's a familiar thing that I've seen a lot. I'm so glad you brought that up because it makes society so much poorer. And I think everybody has that sort of cringy reaction to US culture because it does contain everything, which means it will contain at scale whatever is your least favorite thing. Yeah. Yeah. But the missing side of that is it's also got whatever you like the most in its most concentrated intensity. Unless the thing you like the most is people agreeing.
No, it also has that. That's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah, true. Just don't leave a particular state. This came up because your core frustration that you keep coming up against is in Australian discourse and how people find voices. Do you think, like, what are the obvious consequences of that for you? Like, what's something you've seen recently?
I think what I mean is like when there is a debate in Australian culture, it'll be so structured into pillars of kind of like, here's the ABC perspective, and then
which is a disaster for the ABC, I think. That's
and
true.
Here's the Murdoch media perspective. And it's kind of like, where's the intermingling voices that maybe have their own different framework for the world that has a little bit of the values from over here, a little bit of the values over here, or even are talking about like what this set of values means against this set of values. Like, and there's just like a dearth of those people in Australian society, I think.
And you would think because we're not particularly radical, like within, like the differences between the major political parties are pretty,
they have to compete.
Pretty slim. Yeah. And so you would then think that that would mean that there was sort of a thick middle, which would involve sort of constant navigation and compromise and I guess exploration. But it doesn't feel that way. Like, what are the major discourses recently? I mean, the Voice was a big splitting. I mean, always referenda difficult splits in society in terms of how the narratives go. But I feel like on most of the major issues, it's still hard to get the discourse that squeezes things through the middle, even though
the Voice is a perfect example. Like where I was sitting, I was looking at it and being like, oh, this was almost an amazing proposition to the Australian people. The way I saw it, I just thought it was destined to lose the whole time. And when I talked about that with people,
you and I were rare people
a
to have
lot
that
of
early on.
Saying that. Yeah. And I'm like, what? I'm not saying that it deserves to lose. I just think the way it was structured was destined to lose because I was kind of listening to those different voices. And it was sort of like, my conclusion was, if they had just proposed enshrining the Aboriginal people as the first people on this land and putting them in the constitution like that, that would have become overwhelming yes vote.
90% plus,
yeah. But then they had to like slide something else in there, which then made the people over here on the Murdoch side like really upset about enshrining a body that could never be dissolved. as like they feel like something's getting snuck in, and that the shape of the way governance is done in their country is about to change, and they don't want that. And so like I just felt like I went to an ANU event and it was a debate on The Voice. And all that happened was every single person there said it was an incredibly simple thing to just give rights to Aboriginal people. And it's like, no, like you're just preaching to the converted here.
I mean, if they were right, then it would have been passed, right? Like, I mean,
exactly,
there's an empirical, strong evidence that that's wrong. So very funny that everybody would unilaterally think that.
Yeah. And like, I do agree with you that I think that the gulf between people, it's not huge in Australia, but it appears cavernous because you don't see where the kind of conflict or crossover is. That's how I feel about it.